These are the best-known elephants in Africa, the savanna elephants of Amboseli National Park in Kenya. This is a haven, one of the few places where elephants have remained secure. Here, the females and calves live in large, intact families, each led by the oldest female, the matriarch. Family members range from the tiniest calves up through youngsters, teenagers, mothers, and even grandmothers in their 50s and 60s. Females stay in their families throughout their lives. Males leave when they're about 14 years old to strike out on their own. And Amboseli is also famous for its large bulls with massive tusks. Not many old males have been spared the ravages of poaching and hunting in Africa. Much of what we know about elephant behavior has been discovered here by Cynthia Moss and her colleagues. For 25 years, Cynthia has been documenting the lives of known individuals. She and cameraman Martin Kolbeck have filmed some of her best-known subjects. Cynthia's work has helped to unravel the close-knit relationships among family members. Vocal communication and displays, such as this exuberant greeting ceremony, are binding forces in elephant social life. She has discovered that within families, adolescent females help with child care. Apart from providing extra protection for the calves, this is a learning experience for the young females. It also gives mothers time to feed and rest. Amboseli research has revealed that must, long recognized in Indian elephants, also occurs in the African species. It's a time when dribbling urine and secretions from the glands on the side of the head announce that a male is sexually active and willing to fight for females. Cynthia's study is the foundation of our knowledge about elephants living in the savannah. But how typical are these elephants? Today, Cynthia is visiting Echo and her family one last time before embarking on a new elephant quest.
Hello, Echo. Yes. Can you come say hello? There's Eli. Today, Echo's calf Eli looks fit, but in 1990 he was born crippled. I was amazed at his determination. After 3 days, he managed to stand up and walk. Today, at 7, he's a strapping young bull, and I can find no signs of his difficult start in life.
Oh, it's Ebony wanting to suckle.
Yes, the suckle protest. Echo is not giving in. 3 years ago, I watched Echo give birth to Ebony. It's knowing individuals and being able to follow their lives over time that makes this study so rich for me. I feel very close to Echo and the other elephants of Amboseli. They have provided me with wonderful insights. But I have become intrigued about the elephants living in other parts of Africa. I've heard tales of forest elephants, desert elephants, even pygmy elephants. How different are they? And how have they adapted to such different habitats? There's clearly much more to elephants than I have found here in Amboseli. I want to take a journey of exploration in search of Africa's forgotten elephants.
On the far side of the Rift Valley, the mountains and grasslands of East Africa give way to an endless carpet of rainforest. This is the Congo River Basin, the second largest river system on Earth after the Amazon. The land of the forest elephant, and, so it's said, of the pygmy elephant. Cynthia's guides in the forest are Andrea Turkalo and her Bayaka pygmy tracker, Melebu. Andrea lives in the rainforests of Central Africa and has studied the forest elephants for 7 years. There are more elephants in these forests than in all of East Africa combined, but Cynthia will be lucky to see one. Forest elephants are highly secretive. They'll hear her long before she'll catch a glimpse of them.
Here's something interesting. You can see from this vine and the smoothness how much elephant traffic actually
Looks like it's been
goes on
polished.
this path. Yeah.
Andrea has told me of a special place, Zanga Bai, a clearing in the forest where the elephants congregate.
You can put on a pair of shorts and probably walk barefoot through the forest because elephants have created these huge paths. And the pygmies love it. I mean, that's one thing that pygmies will always say about elephants. They create these beautiful roads for us.
Such a sight when you come out of that dense forest into this
It's like a big
beautiful
picture window.
One of the biggest tuskers in the population is here today. Bob, where's he? He's over right behind that tree. There's quite a young baby. That's Sybil. She's been here all week.
She's not a female.
That calf's about, I think, 5 months old.
I was immediately struck by the differences between these elephants and the savanna elephants of Amboseli. For one thing, their tusks are thinner, straighter, and point downwards. Their ears are smaller and more rounded. But mainly, these elephants are much smaller. The adult females are only 5 to 6 feet high at the shoulder, as compared to 8 to 9 feet in savanna elephants. As they all emerged into the bai, or clearing, many headed straight for huge holes in the ground into which they stuck their trunks.
Tell me about what's going on here. I mean, why are they so attracted? Okay, what's attracting them here is the availability of mineral salts. And you can see there are a bunch of males that have dug holes. So there's the salt on the surface? No, they've dug holes that are approximately 1 meter deep, and in the bottom of the hole they've hit the water layer where they're getting heavily saturated with water, with minerals. And during the dry season, you see an abundance of males because they also test their hierarchy in these holes.
The biggest, most senior males seem to prefer one prized hole, where the minerals must be particularly abundant or tasty. The males vie for supremacy of this hole. In fact, there appears to be a hierarchy of more and less desirable holes. posture of his
Yeah,
right now.
punching right in with that leg outstretched.
Absurd.
Yeah, they
It must
do.
be really deep in there now.
Yeah, they go into all kinds of contortions to get down there.
Meanwhile, the females and the calves and the younger males have to make do with lesser holes around the edge of the clearing. Through all this digging and tramping and rooting around, Andrea believes that the elephants themselves created Zangabai. Many of the lesser holes are flooded. Females have to dig and blow deep into the substrate to access the salts.
So you see pretty much the entire repertoire of forest elephant behavior in this small clearing, which only measures about 500 by 250 meters.
And how many elephants do you think live in the area that actually use this?
Well, based on what I've been able to identify and the percentage I am not able to identify, I would estimate 3,000 elephants in this area.
And how many do you know personally?
Off the top of my head, without cards, probably 500.
Wow. And how many do you have with cards?
I have 2,300.
Oh my God. I think we have a hard time with 900.
Unlike the savanna elephants of Amboseli, where the average family size is 15 and can number as many as 35, these families are tiny, just a single mother with 1 or 2 calves. This reflects life in the forest. It would be difficult for a family of 15 or 20 elephants to feed around a single fruiting tree. Also, with no dangerous large predators like lions, the small calves are not in need of so much protection, and the young can leave their mothers at an early age.
But elephants are highly social animals, and I got a sense that the small families were excited and stimulated on arrival at Zangabai. After all, this is their social center. Here, adolescent males can practice their martial arts, and the calves can learn how to be elephants. What are
those
those?
are potamishers. Those are
Those
Red
are the
River.
red-
River.
Oh, my
You never
goodness.
get to see those. This is great. There'll be a bunch of them. Oh, you get them in nice full sunlight.
Oh my.
They have cute little ears. Their ears are like little whips. Potamishers. I haven't seen them in the daytime here for months.
Oh, we're really lucky
It's a
today.
treat.
Apart from the Red River hogs, many other creatures frequent Zangabai. Forest buffaloes, black and white colobus monkeys, African grey parrots. There are Sitatunga, and even the rare and beautiful bongo. But not all the visitors are given a warm welcome by the elephants.
On that first day, we noticed a young female calf in the Bai on her own. She was malnourished and most likely an orphan. I was amazed that she had survived without a family to help her.
I wonder if she needed the knowledge to survive, the knowledge of the plants, and she doesn't really know which plants to eat and where to go.
Yeah.
'Cause I find that seems to be such an important part of elephant life, that
Right.
they have to learn. I mean, in Amboseli, they're learning what to eat, where to go.
Yeah.
And I imagine that there's poisonous plants that they have to avoid. Maybe she's doing it by trial and error and getting bad diarrhea or whatever.
Yep.
There's long been a belief that there is a second forest species, the dwarf or pygmy elephant. It's easy to see why. There are many small males here with remarkably long, adult-sized tusks. But Andrea thinks that these are just adolescent males who've left their mothers early and have grown precociously large tusks for their age. Recent genetic studies support her view. They might look like miniature adults, but they are, in fact, young forest elephants. So the pygmy elephant is probably only a myth.
I've seen pink elephants, I've seen gray elephants, I've seen red elephants, for instance, in Sava.
We have red elephants here. You don't see them a lot.
Never seen yellow elephants.
Yep. Well, this is the favorite color of some of the elephants. They love yellow. It's basically, I think, to protect themselves against parasites, ticks, or whatever. It probably just feels really good to wallow in mud because you're rubbing, and I think all animals love to rub. But these clays are just different colors from different places. Zonga has yellow mud, and sometimes there's a very pale rose mud that sort of leaks out in one of those holes. And then there's another clearing, they come in, they're very red.
One day I was surprised to see a female and her calf in a prized hole reserved for the big males. Then I saw that this female was being guarded by a huge male in must. Andrea called him Hilton. I guessed that the female was an estrus, and my suspicions were confirmed by the young bulls smelling longingly in her direction. But they didn't have a hope. Hilton wasn't going to allow them anywhere near his favorite drinking spot, much less his favorite female. His behavior reminded me of the musk males in Ambaselli, who sometimes push over a tree and then invite a receptive female for dinner. A larger male presented a more serious challenge. But he proved no match for the massive Hilton. On my last day, we were saddened to see the young orphan lying dead in the by. It confirmed my belief in the importance of family life and learning to an elephant's survival. And I was touched to see behavior that is rarely witnessed. An adult male gently investigating the dead calf with apparent concern. I have seen this behavior in Ambaselli and was fascinated to know that it occurs among other elephants. To me, it is one of the things that makes elephants so extraordinary and still so mysterious.
Inside the forest, one can truly appreciate the way these elephants have adapted to their habitat. Their smaller size and downward-pointing tusks help them get through the dense foliage, and their diet is strikingly different from savanna elephants, who feed mainly on grass and bush. Here they eat fruits and leaves, roots and seeds, more like the diet of gorillas than savanna elephants. But their very feeding is the key to the survival of these forests. At least 30 tree species depend entirely upon elephants for the dispersal of their seeds. African elephants are found in almost every habitat across the continent. To the east, they live on the slopes of the highest mountains. An elephant carcass was once found in the snow at 16,000 feet on Mount Kenya. To the west, they range to the Atlantic coast of Congo and Gabon. At Petit Luango, there are the beach bum elephants feeding off borassus palms by the ocean's edge. They appear to have adopted an almost amphibious way of life, using their trunks as snorkels as they cross the mangrove lagoons. But surely the most extreme environment to which the African elephant has adapted must be the vast mountain deserts of southwestern Africa. Inland from the skeleton coast of Namibia live the elusive desert elephants. At first, it's hard to believe that any living creature could survive in this arid land, let alone elephants with their huge needs. Yet there are signs of life. There are only a few hundred desert elephants in this vast landscape. You could search for weeks and find nothing. But Cynthia has good guides. Blythe Luty has lived here for 25 years. With her trackers, Simpson and John, she guided Cynthia in search of desert elephants. It's the height of the dry season, and the elephants follow the dried-out riverbeds in search of food and water. The waterholes are many miles from the best available food sources, so life for the desert elephant is a constant trek. They're forced to make round-trip journeys of up to 80 miles, and often have to go for 4 days without drinking.
I had always heard that the desert elephants of Namibia are the biggest in Africa. In fact, the tallest elephant on record, a bull of 13 feet 10 inches, was found in this very valley. This huge female must be well over 9 feet at the shoulder, taller than Andrea's biggest bull, Hilton. She has long legs and huge splayed feet. Their feet are completely different from the Amboseli elephants, whose toenails don't come way back here. Toenails are only up here.
Yeah.
And these come way down.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
that's adaptation to protect them from the rockiness.
That's right. Yeah, because they probably have to kick quite a lot of rocks going along.
And very round front foot.
Yeah.
The Amboseli elephants don't have those deep fissures.
Really?
That must be a very deep crack.
What we seem to have seen is that those that are living out in the very rocky areas have smoother feet. And when they are sort of living in an area which is sandy, they seem to get these cracks, probably from the dryness also.
Mm-hmm.
They carry it along with them.
We noticed one young mother with what looked like her first calf. The calf was clearly in trouble, suffering from malnutrition and dehydration. I realized that her life has consisted of one long journey, walking as many as 20 miles a day across some of the toughest terrain in Africa. At this time of the year, the most desirable food is found on the albida trees in the lower river valley, several days' trek from the nearest water. The albida seeds are very tasty, but only the big males can get at them.
Well, the wonderful thing about this tree is that the pods ripen at the time of the year when it's driest, just before the rains, and that's when all the animals need it very badly, and the nutritional value of those pods is quite high, so you get elephants looking in good condition when one would think this is when they're having their hardest time to get food. And of course, shaking the tree like that brings the food down for all the other animals that can't do it for themselves.
You might find springbok, do they eat it as well, and oryx?
Yes, springbok and oryx. You'll find the oryx mostly waiting around for the elephants, I think, to shake the trees.
Oh, nice. And of course, one has to think of why the tree would do that as well. It's not, and I suppose by putting out the fruit at a time of the year when lots of animals are going to use it, then that's more likely to disperse the seed.
And of course, the rain's following up after that.
Sending the seeds out in the floods.
That's right, yes.
I think the trunk alone is what fascinates people about elephants. You know, that I think people say, oh, it's because of the size of the elephant, but actually I think it's because of the trunk of the elephant. The trunk is always searching, it's always moving, and it is like a hand, and so people feel more in touch with an elephant. I think if they didn't have trunks and they weren't able to feel and touch, that we wouldn't feel so much empathy. And the trunk of an African elephant has the 2 fingers. The trunk of an Asian elephant has 1, but the African elephant can do amazing things, pick up the tiniest seeds. It's their whole contact with the world. They're touching their babies with the trunk, they're smelling, they're greeting each other, they're finding water. I often wish I had one.
It does look so convenient.
Yes, everything, yeah. The families in the desert were bigger than those in the forests, but I noted that there were very few calves, almost certainly a reflection of a tough life. There was uncontrolled hunting here for many years. Nevertheless, several of the families were apparently intact with old matriarchs. Others seemed fragmented. The mother of the sick calf appeared to have no family at all. When she met this group, they showed no sign of recognition. The elephant family unit probably evolved as the most successful way of rearing calves. Sisters and aunts can be babysitters. Grandmothers can lead and teach by example. Acting in cooperation, they can all protect against predators. Without this support, I knew that the lone female would have an uphill struggle raising her calf. Pregnancy isn't very costly. It doesn't take that much to maintain a pregnancy in terms of nutrition, but after the birth, and then the amount of nutrition it takes, and liquid, and water to lactate, is the really exhausting time for any animal, not just an elephant. So it's very, very difficult. I mean, they're just, it's a very fine balance here. That's what that strikes me, that they're just on the edge. As the heat of the day reached its zenith, many of the elephants took refuge in the shade of the bigger trees. Here. They seem to be talking to each other. And, I find in Basali we've identified something we call conversation. A conversation rumble, when particularly it seems to happen when one part of the group wants to go one place and the other part wants to stay where they are. And then they talk back and forth, and finally a decision's made.
Yeah, they look as though they're pretty undecided.
Tusk's female is definitely still in feeding mode. Where
Yeah.
the other female looks like she's gone into rest mode. See? Talk. And then what time will they start moving again?
Well, it seems that it's almost on the dot, 4 o'clock. Time to move.
Everything is. They know where the last of the food is and where the pods are, and obviously they know where the water is. And if they didn't, if they sort of took off across the desert and didn't know exactly where to go, they wouldn't survive. This is passed down through generations from the old grandmothers down through the granddaughters and to the bulls. That's why I always think it's such a shame to kill the older bulls just because they have the bigger tusks, because their knowledge is so important. You lose all that wisdom, and elephants are learners. They're not born with this like a bird is. A bird can fly from one continent to another without having to be taught, which is a miracle in itself. But elephants have to learn it all. Yeah. And clearly they've learned where everything is in this habitat, and that knowledge is just so important. The sick calf did not complete her long trek to water. I could not help but feel sad for the young mother's loss. She had failed this time, but she had probably gained experience, and like other young mothers I'd watched, she was more likely to succeed the next time. At last, we reached the water holes. I knew the elephants hadn't drunk for 4 days, and I was fascinated to see what they would do. Nothing is easy for the desert elephants. Even after their long trek, they have to work for their reward. The water lies 2 feet under the protective layer of sand, and they have to dig for it.
It's very important to all the other animals to have that water opened up. And it's really only the elephants that do it. Elephants actually make sure that it opens up and it's nice and clear.
Yeah.
It's something that's very important about the elephants being here.
That's the amazing thing about elephants, that they are so flexible and adaptable. They take advantage immediately of whatever is available, and they find what is best, the best food, the freshest food, the most nutritious food. They haven't stuck with one species or a few species of trees and a few species of grasses or bush. They're total opportunists, and they're willing to make changes. If they haven't found it in one area, they might actually even move to a new area. They may come from far away and start living in a new place. And that's how they've been able to survive across the continent.
On Cynthia's last day, the first rains fell in the desert. A meager few drops, which served only as a stark contrast to her next destination.
When they say it was pouring rain, oh, it's too hot. It's gonna get.
From one of the driest parts of Africa to one of the greenest. Queen Elizabeth National Park nestles in the western Rift Valley of Uganda. Once this lush area was home to 4,000 elephants, but today's tranquil landscape belies a turbulent past. In the 1970s and 80s, Uganda was the scene of some of the worst elephant slaughters, as armies and rebels chased each other through this troubled nation. Uganda lost 90% of its elephants. When the killing stopped, biologist Eve Abbey came to find out what remained of the vast herds. She found frightened youngsters huddled together for security.
Elephant. Looks like a family group. You think we can get closer to them?
Yes, I think we just have to drive off. I can see 4 at least. Must be a couple of little ones out there.
So when you first started your study, what did you actually find here?
At that time, I didn't think it was so incredible. But now, when I look back, those days, every time I came looking for elephants, I'd find them in this one tight aggregation of about 150 individuals. And they were so difficult to find. If you missed one, you're sure you would never see any. And at the slightest sound of a vehicle, they'd just scamper, you know, they'd be gone. But 3, 4, 5 years I've been here, and now I meet single little family units, and it's becoming common.
So they just all gathered, all the remaining ones that were after the poaching, just got in one group.
Very tight, actually. There's hardly distance between elephants when they're moving.
So of those 150, the majority were under 10, say, or under 15? What would be the
Majority were like 15 to 20-year-olds.
I see.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was so distinct. You could just imagine that these are probably the little ones who managed to be left untouched or just managed to escape.
Gosh, must have been horrible. Horrible for them. So much to eat out there. Think of those poor elephants we saw in Namibia, which had about 3 food sources, far apart, and hard work down there.
They could gorge themselves to death here.
They probably come and die of overeating, as you said.
Is it about 3 months when they start picking up grass? And
Yeah, they can just about eat between 3 and 4 months. It's not until they're about 6 months that they're feeding fairly proficiently.
It's probably teaching her cows what to eat.
Yes. Often you see the calf reach into the mother's mouth and pull out vegetation when it's trying to learn which species to eat. And they like the tender young grass.
There's definitely a lot of vegetation out there waiting to be destroyed by elephants. Vegetation-wise, the elephants will do very well.
Young males are finding their sexuality amazingly early here and mating with much older females.
The male looks very young.
It would be a joke in Amboseli to have a male that size chasing an estrus female.
He can't be more than 16-year-old.
No, if that. He's not big at all.
No. Presumably you don't have even 15-year-olds ever coming into must.
No, they don't come into must till they're over 25.
Right. But now, since they're none, since they're no old males, you know, they're definitely coming to must.
That's amazing. Yeah, they seem to be breeding about as fast as they can here.
Make up for lost years. Look at those calves. They just seem so close in age.
Reproduction in Amboseli, the average is 4 to 5 years apart. So if you see a female in Amboseli, you see her with maybe a 1-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-year-old, or a 9 or 10-year-old. Here I was seeing a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old, and then a 7-year-old, and that's quite a striking difference.
And Eve has recorded a very unusual phenomenon here. The females are producing a remarkable number of twins, a sure sign of an abundance of food and space. There are also many tuskless calves being born.
I've noticed that a lot of the tuskless females are giving birth to tuskless female calves.
And if that trend continues, if the tuskless males are getting more opportunity to come and mate, I see increasing percentage of tuskless individuals in the park.
So maybe in 20 years from now I can come back and sit here and
Oh
say...
yes, I'd love to come back here and tell you,
yes,
Cynthia, just look down there.
yes.
You know, the animals are all here, they're all back, and the elephants are doing very well. I think there's very good hope, so long as the poaching is kept low. I think they have tremendous ability to recover.
What I've learned here in Queen Elizabeth is that elephants are more resilient than I think I've given them credit for. They really are survivors. I mean, really, when you think that 5 years ago they were running around in one packed, tight, terrified group of mostly youngsters or, you know, teenagers. And now, when I look at them, they're in proper families. Calves seem relaxed, we've seen a lot of play. They're basically happy elephants. I returned to Amboseli with mixed feelings. While I was away, Tuskless, one of the elephants I knew best, was shot dead. Even here in the most secure elephant park in Africa, there is no guarantee of survival. Elephants are clearly living on borrowed time. They can adapt to forests and deserts, to seashores and mountains, but they'll never adapt to our weapons. And Africa is still a continent of wars and famines, of poverty and a burgeoning population. Yet I came back with one strong and positive feeling. I am not alone. There are dedicated people out there working to save elephants and their habitats. Not just numbers of elephants, but their whole flexible, fascinating way of life.
Can elephants survive another millennium? Only if we're prepared to give them space and the peace that comes with protection. For there can be no doubt now that the future of all of Africa's elephants rests with us.